Welcome back to the channel. We got a pretty big news update for you here for Tarkov as far as volume. There's a lot of stuff for the last week that happened. Things like Nikki leaks, we got the poll results, there's another poll, tech updates, all that kind of stuff. So we'll get into that, get you guys up to date, and at the end of the video, we'll kind of go over the poll results a little bit and talk about it and what I think it means and what it points to. So let's not waste any more time, get right into it. All right, so first thing, let's look at the Nikki leak, the vlog, the developer vlog, whatever they want to call it here. I don't know, maybe this means we're getting merch. You can get a Pestiling mask. This is a new weapon. We'll see it again here, but this is a 545 AK. Oh, sorry, 545 M4 platform. Think like this, the Mutant is, where it shoots 7.62. This is kind of that, but for 545. I forget what it's called, the brand, but that's what it is. Some more dev stuff showing maps. This looks like something that's going to be in Tarkov or Arena. Hard to say. Just maps and stuff that they're showing. Stuff, devlog stuff from one of the events. This is kind of interesting because it kind of shows lighting of them screwing around or changing stuff in game. So might not mean anything. Might be cool. Don't know what that is. Videotaping. This is them recording their they do ASMR kind of gun stuff that they do on their YouTube channel. This looks like that's what this is. Here is that 545 M4. It's not an M4, M4 style platform mutant kind of 545 thing. So it's kind of cool. Be a 545. Be interested to see what fire rate it is. Does it have the higher fire rate like the M4s or the HKs do, or is it still back around where an AK is? So that could be a pretty big deal. Some music stuff, just dev stuff that they're showing them shooting the GL somewhere. And then this one here, pretty interesting. I skipped over it. This is woods, obviously, but this is the BTR route. So each of these little circles is one of the BTR stops. These two blue things are BTR spawns. There's another one down here though, that I haven't seen it do yet. So maybe something in the future. And then they've got these routes highlighted. They're working on something obviously with the BTR. So just kind of behind the scenes look there with that. More devlog stuff for when they're doing Chronicles of Regime or whatever it is. And then that back to the beginning. So there is the Nikki leak, the devlog, whatever you want to call about it. Here's the in-game survey. Again, I'll talk about this more at the end. I just want to go through it and show it to you guys. We'll put the link down in the description so you can go look at it yourself. They got all the percentages. There's some text here. I'll go through all of this at the end of the video because it's going to be a yap fest. So I didn't want to do it right in the middle. Get through the news for you. The technical patches, there's been two technically, I guess, technically, pun intended. Talk about some of the stuff they fixed. They added the ability to disable the game frame limit in raids regardless of the NVIDIA reflex settings. Fixed all known causes of disappearing audio in raids. Still happening. I've seen a couple of reports of people, so if it is happening, make sure you do a bug report, very specific. Hey, my audio is still disappearing. Provide a video and or screenshots if you can. Helps them figure out all the causes of this. And if you're not sure what this is, literally all of your game audio just shuts off. The only way to fix it is by Alt F4ing and then rejoining the raid, and then it fixes it. But it's pretty bad bug to have happen to you if you're in the middle of a raid. They fixed positioning of the gunshot sound source when the shooter was directly behind the player's back. So I think this has to do with how hard it is to tell if you are facing in line with a shot. Like, let's say somebody's straight behind you and they're shooting towards you. You couldn't tell if they were shooting from in front of you or behind you. I didn't notice anything today playing anything different, but hopefully they addressed that because there has been a couple of times where I got shot at and I couldn't tell whether it was from front or behind because the audio just sounds so similar. Fix the active headset effect disappearing when starting a raid in PvE. Fix the positioning for Zerachi and his guards at the peninsula on Lighthouse. So if you have light keeping, you're going out there, you notice the guards sometimes spawn in weird spots or they aggro you and kill you and it just sucks, right? Hopefully this has fixed that. This is a second or third time this bug's come around and they fix it and it goes back to normal. So that's good. And then they fixed multiple visual issues on locations. I think this might have to do with culling or things as far as stuff disappearing or reappearing or being able to see through buildings. That kind of stuff is usually what they're getting at when they say this. Now, there is another survey. I'll throw up some B-roll here real quick. It is about the Khorovod event. It is bottom right. It does give you some stuff. I think I got 2 pressure gauges, but it's real quick. Go through. You can put your opinion on the Khorovod event, what you thought about it, so BSG knows. One quick mention as well, the Drop Fest is still going on. If you want to get the hideout, the Tranquility hideout, I'll show you here. I have it. It is this stuff. You got the ceiling, the bright ceiling, the green floor. Here, let me change to the other lighting so you can see what it looks like with the other lighting too. This is what it looks like with the other lighting. They got rainbows and funny animals, and I don't know, it kind of clashes with some of my posters. Gold at the end of the rainbow. That bunny's censoring one bunny. You know, so if it's you want it, cool. If you don't blame you. To get the skin, you need to go to, let me get to the thing here real quick. You have to go to a streamer that is actively streaming Tarkov. They have to be live. They have to be on. And you need to sub to them and gift them a sub, or gift them 2 subs, or sub to 2 different streamers that are live between now and February 3rd at 8 a.m. Eastern. And then it shows up as a drop. You claim that on Twitch, and then I don't know, it took about a minute and it showed up, about 60 seconds, and it showed up in the game for me. You do have to make sure your account is linked on the Escape from Tarkov website, so make sure you do that. So that's there if you want it. If you don't feel obligated or FOMO about this, it just is what it is. It is also not for PvE, just like all the other drops. It only works on PvP. Okay, so let's get to the survey and what the answers said, and not just the answers, the write-up. We appreciate your time and effort in submitting your votes in the in-game survey system, and are really thrilled to share some of the key insights of it with you. Findings below will not include exact numbers, yet we will try to reflect the percentage distribution of the players who voted. The main purpose of the survey was to gather additional data that will play a huge role in game balancing processes, as well as help us get a better understanding of what players are truly looking for in Escape from Tarkov. The feedback provided by the community showcases how engaging with the player sentiments can strengthen the bonds with the Escape from Tarkov ecosystem. So, some nicety stuff there, but question number 1, do you find the Escape from Tarkov gameplay more engaging with the flea market closed? Yes, 48%. No, 31.7%, 0.8%, and then not sure, 19.7%. I don't know how you answer not sure on this question. I genuinely don't. Like, if you're somebody who did, please explain to me why you said not sure. I don't quite understand how there's this many people that have a not one way or the other to it. And maybe it's because you liked some bit of it and you didn't like other of it. Either way, I don't understand it. So by all means, let me know in the comments if you're one of these people why you put not sure, because that's a lot of people. So I think that this goes to the point of, you might not have liked the flea market being closed, but you still found the game more engaging. So I think that's why this question was actually a really good question versus a yes, do you like the flea market closed? Do you not like the flea market closed? I think this was a good question for it, because I do know there was a lot of people that were like, oh my God, they closed the flea market. This wipe is going to suck. And then 2 or 3 days in, they were really enjoying it. So and there's quite a few streamers that changed the wind sock shifted with the wind, shall we say, after the first couple of days of playing with it. Now for the next one, they say, here is where we've seen first correlation between Twitter versus active player base. While Twitter audience was more of a negative towards lock of the flea market in game results. Sorry, let me say that again. While Twitter audience was more of a negative toward locking the flea market, in-game results showed us that nearly 50% of respondents believe that locking of the flea market benefits early game progress and makes looting aspects of the game more purposeful, as well as engaging for players to stay in raids longer. Now, this next bit's talking about the challenges that everybody faced, and there's not really any surprises here, right? This was the most common stuff the gripes they had about the flea market being closed, and it's 26% had the ability to get quest keys, right? So some of the quest keys showed up on Therapist or wherever. Different traders had different keys. Some of them come through tasks, but there were some quests that you just have no access to the keys unless you get lucky and find them, or you got really lucky and the room was opened. Some of them, like the ones that I got hung up on, were East Wing 328, I think it is, for Oh, it's what Peacekeeper task, wet job part 5 or something, maybe. I can't remember exactly. It was one of his ones. That one hung me up forever. And then some of the reserve ones, I didn't get done until we got the flea market and I could buy the keys. So yeah, just everybody felt that. I don't think it's the only thing that's surprising to me is that only 26% of people checked that. Maybe people just didn't get far enough and that's why they didn't, but which would explain, you know, people not getting to some of theirs. Most of the lower end keys are available, so it's people that power level and play a lot that had that problem. Requirement to find found and raid items for the hideout upgrade. This is only at 21%. I expected this to be high, just as high as the key thing too, just because that's a lot of people have been complaining about it, or at least there's a lot of comments about it, should I say. So I thought it was going to be more prevalent than that. I don't know that necessarily means. I think this is kind of a bad answer for this question, because the hideout being found and raid had nothing to do with the flea market being open or closed, because it doesn't change when the flea market's open or closed. You still got to get the items found and raid, right? So sure, you can craft some stuff a little bit easier, but nonetheless, I expected this to be higher. Only 21% of people being stuck on the found and raid thing is interesting. I might do some more polls on my YouTube to kind of look at this, and we'll see if BSG can drill into it a little bit more, especially with something that's as contentious as the found and raid item for hideout upgrades. Inability to purchase equipment items was only, the rest of these are all like 11%, right? Inability to purchase equipment items, difficulty completing in-game quests, inability to craft certain items, inability to purchase medicine and ammunition. All of that stuff kind of falls in the same category, right? So it doesn't surprise me that the numbers are all kind of the same. And I kind of expected it to be this low because I don't think people really had an issue with gear, because they didn't feel outclassed, because everybody has the same restrictions on gear for the most part. So there wasn't this need to, okay, I have to have the flea market to be able to keep up with people who have level 4 traders, or I have to have the flea market to keep up with everybody else who has the flea market and have good ammo, because the ammo you had access to worked pretty good. Fights were pretty balanced, at least in my experience. It was pretty even trades. It was more of a skill thing than a luck thing. And so that was good, in my opinion. That's how I felt about it anyways. And then 4% did not encounter any issues. Boy, that's a hardcore 4% right there, I guess. And then did not play when the flea market was closed. This is only 2.5%. So this number might be smaller than it should be of the actual player base, because I guarantee you there's people that didn't play the wipe at all. They're like Tarkov. They didn't give me the flea market. I ain't playing this wipe. And then they just stopped paying attention to it and they went and played other games. No criticism there. Play what makes you happy. But I think what that means that this number is probably smaller than it should be. 2.5% is accurate, obviously, from the players that are playing the game. There's obviously a lot of people that didn't play the game that probably didn't vote at all. So just keep that in mind with that. That number is probably not as small as it really seems like it is. Here's BSG's text here. And this stuff's really thoughtful. I really did enjoy reading through some of this because they had some pretty good insights, stuff that I didn't even think of. And so they say here, so for both Twitter replies and survey data, told us that lockdown of the flea market not only slows down progression of the players, but also adds more challenges. One of the main concerns of players was lack of barters for keys to progress further down, with traders' tasks following with the second most popular response, hideout found and raid requirements. This created bigger challenges for the player base. This also sums up another biggest point, inability to purchase gear needed for tasks, like setup, as well as armor, medicine, and ammo. While we do believe Escape from Tarkov is a hardcore and realistic shooter, we also share an understanding that challenges should come naturally and not gatekeep players where it's not necessary. It's a really good point to make there. You want the game to be challenging, but you don't want people gatekept for silly stuff like RNG, right? Running 30 raids to find a key so you can progress one task isn't good game design. That's not fun. That's not hardcore. It's just stupid, in my opinion anyways. And I think BSG kind of they do recognize that, and they're vocalizing that there. They said, with the data gathered, we will continue to explore different options to find the right balance for this matter. Now, here's the changes to the flea market. This is a pretty interesting one. This one, I did not expect it to be this high. And dare I say, I have to do some convincing of people. And maybe there's some people didn't really understand the question here. Point being is 30% of people are satisfied with a current flea market system, which is where you can flip shit from the traders. Oh, I hate that. Anybody watching here knows I hate that. So I need to do more. I make more of an effort to try to convince people of this, because I mean, that's down right there. I mean, that pretty much says 30% of the player base don't want any changes. But that's not a majority. BSG will get to that in a second, but we'll go some of this other stuff. Now, allow listing items only with found and raid status. Only 18% of people like that. Now, if I have to choose between the current flea market where it's completely open and a found and raid flea market, I'm going to pick the found and raid flea market. Ideally, we land somewhere in the middle, right? For me, being able to sell players gear that you kill in raid, perfectly fine. I think you should be able to do that. I think that's totally okay. Ammo might be another conversation, but don't need to get into details of that. I just don't like arbitrage. I don't like what it does to the economy of the game. I don't like what it does to the game loops. Basically removes game loops of progression and stuff like that. You might like it. That's fine. I'm not trying to say you're wrong. I'm trying to give you my opinion. So put the pitchforks and torches away in the comment section, please. Next one is remove all restrictions on listing the items in the flea market. This is 16%, 17%. So almost as many people want the flea market to be completely open with no restrictions, like being able to buy class 6 armor, M61, stuff like that, as want a found and raid flea. Boy, I think that's a lot of people that didn't play when we had that. We did have that at one point, 4 years ago, back in 2020. The flea market was completely open, and into 2021 a little bit, but as they started to phase in restrictions, it was terrible, to be frankly honest with you, because everybody that had money rolled down to basically 3 weapons, maybe 4. It was VSSs, SA-58s, meta M4s, and then you would occasionally see some other, like some of the 5.45 AKs, not very often, and we also didn't have as many guns back then as we do now. Nowhere near as many. Like there wasn't the MDR, things like that. And then all those guns, they were shooting M61. You were shooting 9x39 BP. Basically, all the ammos that render class 6 useless. It doesn't do anything. So you pretty much just ran class 4 armor because it was cheap and it stopped scavs, because players were going to blow through your armor anyways, so it was kind of pointless to wear it. And fights were instantaneous. People died really quick. It wasn't good. Game got stale fast. PvP was silly in a lot of ways. And I mean, this is back when there was no inertia. There's a lot of factors to that. But again, a completely open, restrictionless flea market. We've been there. We've done that. I don't really think we need to do it again. I suspect a lot of the people that are saying they want that weren't around for that experience. Because I haven't talked to anybody that was around for that. And talked with them a lot and had them explain to me specifically what they were after, that ended up being like, yeah, that is a good idea. It was more like, okay, yeah, fully open isn't probably a good thing, but that is what it is. Introduce specific operating times for the flea market, e.g. weekends only. That's only 12%. I think these are terrible ideas personally. Not that people that come up with the idea are terrible. This falls into the kind of the category of traders resetting and just sitting on traders to reset. Not everybody operates on weekends. Not everywhere has weekends. Some people's weekends are on Wednesday or Thursday or Tuesday or Wednesday. It's not Saturday, Sunday for everybody. So having specific days set aside just isn't good, because it makes people get on. They have to get on the game to play the game, because if that's the only time the flea market is, you're going to get on. And it makes the game go from being a game to a job. So I don't like that. That's the same thing with, allow listing offers for barter trades and limit the items available for listing on the flea market. I think these are really niche ideas. I don't necessarily say we shouldn't try them out, as far as like saying, okay, you can only list 10 things a week or 10 things a day or whatever it is, right? 10 listings a day. I'm kind of okay with experimenting and trying that out to just see what it does, but I really don't think it's going to be a good thing, just because of how limited it is for players to be able to play the game. Obviously, it's better than having the flea market completely locked, but those are my thoughts on it. We didn't get answers to the last question, but here's some of BSG stuff. Here we also saw an interesting outcome. Nearly 30% of the total number of respondents shared that they are satisfied with the current way the flea market operates and would not change anything in it. While this has been the most voted answer, it still shows that nearly 66.6%, say 67%, of respondents look for some type of change to the flea. This gives us a ground field for some potential changes we can make to increase the number of players satisfied with the flea market to 50% and above. So they said it really well there. Just because this is the biggest number doesn't mean it's necessarily the answer, right? Because even though it's the biggest number, it's not a majority. And in order to get to where more than half the player base is happy with the flea market, you've got to do something different than just leave it where it's at. And God, I hope they try and do it without arbitrage. Let's go there and see how people feel about it, and see how people feel about the flea without arbitrage. And that should be the next experiment, I really hope, but we'll just have to wait and see. Outcome, all in all, we're constantly monitoring both our in-game data as well as your direct input via surveys so that we can refine our understanding of how data correlates to in-game states of balance. We truly believe that with the help of the community, we will get a better understanding of what aspects of the game seems off and how we can adjust them. In the future, we also plan to share survey results in a similar format for some surveys. They might tell us, they might not. A lot of communication here. It's good. Some people are going to say it's too little too late. Some people are going to say better late than never. I don't give a shit. I'm glad to have it. I'm glad they're communicating. I'm glad they're talking. And I'm glad they're asking for feedback and then showing everybody what the feedback is. Now, the last question that friendly guy brought up, he said, so where's the last question asking what people would do? Nearly 50% of the respondents say it was more engaging, but you didn't show the question where removing flea entirely was an option. Why? Daniel basically says less than 10% wanted the flea completely removed. So keep that in mind. Less than 10% of people voted wanted the flea completely removed. That is a very small minority. But he also says the distribution of the answers in the last question basically gave no outcomes or valuable thoughts. I don't like that answer. He's fair to give it. It's his choice. It's BSG's choice to not share it. There's no reason to not share that information. I don't like going, okay, this is kind of a bad question. Let's not show the data. What they do is you show the data and be an explanation of, hey, here's the numbers, but they really don't mean anything and this is a product of asking a bad question, I think. Could be wrong about that, but it's usually if you ask a question and you get a bunch of answers that don't tell you anything, then usually you ask the question incorrectly and you had incorrect answers. It's generally what that means. So maybe they refine it and we get a better one later. We'll see. Wouldn't hold your breath on that, but that's the important point that you're going to see a lot of people talking about. And here's where it comes from. If you don't know who Daniel is, he's the lead community manager for BSG. So he's official source on that. But that's the survey. Again, we'll throw the links down there so you guys can go look at it. It is a pretty big bit of information. It's kind of cool to comb over. Correlating it to other polls. I went and looked at some of the polls on my channel. In fact, let me just pull it up real quick. Okay, so if we go look at polls, and I'll show you some of these other things too, because some of the people love these polls. A lot of creators ran these polls. Landmark, Stankrat, myself. YouTube is better than Twitter. I'm not going to get into that argument. If you don't agree with me, that's fine. You're wrong. But the way YouTube does polls is just better. The ecosystem they operate in, they're more accurate. And more people. 80% of the US population uses YouTube, and it's like 20%. I don't even think it's 20% uses Twitter. So samples, all population samples, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to get into stats class. Go take it yourself if you want it. I hated that class. I did pass it on the third try. I asked, I like no flea, but glad it's coming back after 2 weeks. I like no flea, and I want it to turn off even longer, right? So this right here said on my poll that, nearly 60%, or it is 60%, it's 64%, liked the flea being turned off at the start of the wipe. That's more than what BSG's poll said. A lot of ways you could explain that from the fact that people that don't play the game could vote here versus not. And then the I don't like the flea being turned off was 10%. Now that's just, again, it's not apples to apples because I asked a different question, right? Did you find it more engaging or less engaging, right? 40% of people, like there's definitely people that might have said that they didn't find the game more engaging, but they liked the flea being turned off, right? You just don't know exactly how people's heads work, especially with very simple Q&As like this. But again, take it for what it is. It just doesn't really impact things. You know, I didn't go through and do the math and pull up because it's 27% as I play PvE, SPT, don't care, don't play. You know, that affects these numbers here. Having this kind of throwaway poll item to pull it out, it really impacts what these numbers really mean. Like, for example, this, if you discard everybody who voted here, this number goes to actually 13% of the players that don't matter. I don't want to use that word, that don't matter for the sake of the poll, right? This goes to 13%. So polls are funky. They're not always right. They're just general gauge. They're great for conversation. But that's what mine was. Landmark had a little bit different worded. Stanker had a little bit different worded. The numbers were a little bit different, but the general consensus was that more people liked it than didn't. And I think we saw that same result out of BSG's polling as well, though there was some interesting stuff there. And if you are curious, one of the other polls we did, the answers are right here. This is 5 days old. This was at the month of the wipe. And I want to point out here that you have 60%, probably more, of the player base is under level 30. So you're not that far behind. If you're playing and you're level 15 or 20, you're right there in the middle of the pack of everybody else. This stuff down here is going to be inflated because of all the people that are PvE that are voting in this, which there's some in here. I need to make it clear. I wish they gave me more polls. I only have 4 choices. I wish they'd give me more to have a place for people that are playing PvE to vote as well. Because it doesn't, I don't want to say you guys don't matter, but that's not, we're not looking for PvE players. We don't care where you are a month into wipe on PvE because you didn't wipe, right? You've been playing for 6 months or 7 months or whatever. And yeah, of course you're gonna be higher level. So anyways, I think this number is higher than it should be because of the PvE answers. Yeah, just keep that in mind. You're not far behind. All right, like I said, that was a long one. There was a lot here. I appreciate those of you that hung out with me this long. Hope you guys got a bunch of value out of it. Hope you learned some stuff. Interesting to see what your guys' takes are down in the comments. You guys always have lots of insights and lots of interesting things to say. And I do enjoy reading most of it. Some of you guys are kind of shitheads, but it is what it is. That's it, though. We're going to wrap her up there. Thank you guys for watching. Wish you the best of luck in your raids. Good luck on your prestige hunt if that's what you're doing, or if you're just enjoying Tarkov. Awesome. Looking forward to some events and things coming up. Appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you in Tarkov.